And good evening, everyone. I'm Rod Carter.
And I'm Stacy Scheibel. Welcome to the hidden history of Tampa Bay.
In the next 30 minutes, we will explore the untold stories of African Americans who played a huge role in shaping the community that we live in today.
Now, each year, communities across the nation set aside February to honor the contributions of African Americans. And to kick off the celebration, the city of St. Petersburg raised a flag outside of City Hall. That flag raised is in honor of Carter G. Woodson. Now, Woodson was a historian who dedicated his life to the study of African American culture and history.
Yeah, really, he's known as the father of Black History Month. And in St. Petersburg, there's a museum that many people may not know really exists, and it bears Carter G. Woodson's name.
I say Roger and roll.
Nestled in historic South St. Petersburg along the African American Heritage Trail sits a bit of hidden history.
The Carter G. Woodson African American History Museum opened its doors in April of 2006.
It's a museum that a lot of people may not even know is here.
And that's a story that, sadly enough, is not told often enough.
Terry Lipsy Scott is the chair of the Woodson Museum Board. It's a place named after Carter G. Woodson, the man credited with helping launch Black History Month. It houses historical artifacts, and it also serves as a space for local artists to display their work, like these pieces by St. Pete artist Stephen Ramsey.
When folks, in fact, enter the doors of the Carter G. Woodson African American History Museum, they're embraced by the history, the culture, and the welcoming sense of a history that has certainly escaped many.
An importance that did not escape the people who live around it. Fact is, this used to be the community center for Jordan Park Public Housing, but the residents willingly gave it up.
In order to have a place here in St. Petersburg where we can preserve, present, and interpret African American history.
Although currently owned by the Housing Authority, there is an effort for the city to take over.
We are hoping to close potentially on the museum within the next 25 to 30 days.
And keep this place with its lush outdoor area and historical indoor space open for years to come.
The Tuskegee Airmen are a well-known group of African-American pilots who fought in World War II.
They were the first African-American military aviators in the United States Armed Forces. Now, here's what you may not have known. 3 women helped usher them into existence. Eleanor Roosevelt was one of them. Another, Florida educator Mary McLeod Bethune. She is the founder of the Bethune-Cookman University. And according to a local man with deep historical roots in Tampa, the original intended home for the program was supposed to be at Bethune-Cookman University in Daytona Beach. But he says white farmers there wouldn't sell the land for the aviation training fields.
If you can understand the times, which are not now, but you've got to understand the truth of the times in order to really appreciate where we are. And in 1940 and 1939, it was not to be associated with or sympathetic to or identified with black people in the South was literally political suicide.
Bethune-Cookman University is a historically black college. It got its start in 1904, offering training for women. Through the next 100 years, it grew into a co-ed university offering majors in numerous disciplines. And learning more about the role of African Americans in our community is as simple as taking a trip to a very special library in Tampa.
Yes, the Robert Saunders Library. It expanded, going from 8,000 square feet to 26,000 square feet in the last couple of years. But more than that, it's actually a repository for African American history.
Tampa is a city rich in history and culture. The African American experience is a part of that heritage. Once home to greats like Ray Charles and Butterfly McQueen, the woman who knew nothing about birthing babies, herself born in downtown Tampa. Even musical icons like Ella Fitzgerald frequented the Bay Area. She's even said to have written a Tisket a Tasket right here. Well, now there's a place in Tampa to learn about them and much more, the Robert Saunders Library on Nebraska Avenue. It is the area's only African-American research library, only one of 4 on the East Coast.
It's in the community, about the community, for the community.
Librarian Carrie Hurst says people can come here to the special section, look at old newspapers, and find rare books dealing specifically with the African-American experience. But there's much more.
They can use our digital resources to digitize their own information, such as they can bring in family Bibles and such like that. And we have specialized equipment to put that information into digital format.
The $7.8 million library, rebuilt this year, started in 1905 as the E-Board Library. It was renamed for Saunders, who was the head of the NAACP in 1952.
The history of African Americans, the contributions that they have made, has often been overlooked or neglected. And we've got to change that, and now we have a home for our history.
And that library is only one of 4 places on the East Coast with an African American history repository. It's also a place where you can actually go to record your own family history.
Well, a family who made an impact on the Bay Area is, of course, the Armwood family. They settled in Hillsborough County, and Armwood High School is named after one member of the family, Blanche Armwood. Blanche was born in Tampa in 1890 and was the youngest of 5 children. At the age of 12, she went to Spelman College in Atlanta and graduated 4 years later. She eventually ended up back in Tampa teaching.
She was hired to teach those classes, and she did such a good job at that. She developed several other schools doing that same thing in the nation, different places.
Blanche Armwood later went on to law school. She died in 1939 at the age of 49.
Taking the lessons of Black History Month to school.
Still ahead, we're going to see how one Bay Area school is using one artist technique as a way to engage students.
And the St. Petersburg Theater Company telling unique African-American stories why that theater has done something that only a handful of other theater companies in the country have managed to do. As we continue to look at the contributions of African Americans, you can't ignore the world of art.
And one artist getting special attention in Bay Area schools is Jean-Michel Basquiat.
And he cared for the Black people.
These 5th graders at the Village of Excellence Academy in Tampa are showing off their creations for Black History Month. Art they created in the Basquiat style, featuring Black leaders from right here in the Bay Area.
I picked Chloe Coney.
Chloe Coney was one of the special guests on hand.
Wow, give me a big hug. This is awesome.
To see the culmination of this project, featuring her and others who have paved the way.
Chloe Coney actually came up to look at my picture. It was pretty cool because I got to see her.
To be honored today by children, I told them I'm about to cry. It's just overwhelming.
Coney currently works for Congresswoman Kathy Castor, but has spent 40 years as a Black leader in the Tampa community. She left her all-Black junior high school at the age of 13 to help integrate the Tampa school system.
Biggest thing I want to do is to pass the baton, pass the legacy on to them.
She opened doors and made...
This class project is part of the Hillsborough County Public School Black History Month contest. And these kids chose to design in the Jean-Michel Basquiat style because he was an artist who had a strong connection to fighting for civil rights.
The art helps them to kind of just transcend color and realize that it's really about who you are and the integrity and the person you are on the inside that matters the most.
Kamitra Edwards is the executive director at the Village of Excellence Academy.
I thought it was really critical for them to be able to make connections between the things that we read and the things that we study and how it actually plays out in real life.
It motivates me because most Black African Americans are like put down because of our skin color. So what she did is she's proved to us of how we can reach our goals, even though we're not we're not another color.
And all I can say to them is dream big and do good, and we're going to see great things from them.
Now, 2 of those 5th grade scholars, Montrell Holmes and Jalen Wright, had their artwork chosen to represent the school district in Black History Month at an exhibit in the Florida State Fair.
That's pretty good stuff.
Well, staying on the theme of art, sometimes art isn't always found in galleries.
Yeah, this next story I like to call great examples of side art. It's art that's found on the side of buildings and the side of the road.
If you obey, God bless you.
Along State Road 60 in the historical African-American town of Bealsville,
born and raised in the country,
Ruby Williams, whose age I did not dare ask, sells fruits, vegetables, and joy through her hand-painted folk art. Though she opened the stand in the 1980s, it wasn't until 1991 that another folk artist passed by and saw her work. things she painted to sell her fruits and veggies.
And now I'm everywhere. Everywhere.
Since then, her work has been in galleries across the country, including the Smithsonian.
I stayed in New Jersey. I was a driver. I used to take people down to Smithsonian for them to see, but never thought I'd be in it.
Miss Ruby's wisdom is as powerful as her art, treating people right and doing what's right.
Do what you're supposed to do.
That's what she lives by.
Unique art can be found from the side of the road with Miss Ruby to the side of St. Pete buildings with Coach English.
Communicate about love.
Coach Thomas English, that is. He is responsible for many of the murals you'll see on buildings scattered throughout South St. Pete.
See, when the people like your work, they like you.
When we caught up with him, he was doing advertising art on a store. He does a lot of those. But things like this, the long bicycle on this cycle shop and the equation at this store are really his thing.
Because your work says something. You know, you can feel the, your spirit in it.
Coach loves art and baseball. His passion for Negro League baseball goes everywhere he goes. He uses both to reach young people in St. Pete.
So you got to do what you got to do. You got to do what you can do to make things happen.
Well, Hollywood is getting in on the push to highlight the contributions of African Americans throughout the years.
And a recent movie, Hidden Figures, highlights the untold story of 3 women working with NASA. They were instrumental in helping launch John Glenn into orbit. And this month, students from Jefferson High School marched to West Shore AMC theaters to watch that movie and learned. Many were inspired by the message that anyone can dream big.
Sometimes I can feel a little bit limited, but I feel like that'll just open things for me.
I think it's inspiring because me, myself, I'm an African American, so I feel like now I can really do anything I put my mind to.
We don't have the man figured out yet.
Jefferson teachers hope the movie helps students understand the importance everyone can play in history if they do not limit themselves. And from the silver screen and the stage, history is being made. A theater in St. Petersburg has a distinction that only a handful of theaters across the country have.
Really good story here. It's running in the award-winning film Fences, starring Denzel Washington and Viola Davis. But that movie, of course, is based on a stage play by the late playwright August Wilson.
At American Stage, a decade dedicated to unique African-American stories. Every year for the past 10 years, American Stage has produced a play from August Wilson's Pittsburgh cycle. Running right now, Joe Turner's Come and Gone, a story of a boarding house in 1911.
It's a big challenge for any theater to mount all 10 of August's plays. A lot of theaters have tried to do it and run out of money, run out of steam, run out of enthusiasm. But American Stage has pulled it off.
Actor Kim Sullivan plays Seth Holly in the play. He, in fact, has performed in every play in this century cycle at American Stage, and he's seen a lot of actors come and go. But this group, he says,
this collection of souls is real sweet. They're all very good craftsmen. They know their stuff. They're good people, fun to be around. And that's a good thing, you know.
The Century Cycle features stories from every decade from the 1900s to the 1990s. And they range from Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, about the 20s blues sensation and her struggles to record, to Jitney, which tells the stories of unlicensed cab drivers operating in Pittsburgh's Hill District. For Kim, though, his favorite Wilson role didn't become clear until now.
But having done all 10, now I can get a clear look. Piano Lesson was hands down my favorite. The role of whining boy fits like a pair of old shoes.
Now, we know that the names Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks, of course, but do you know Claudette Cloven or Bayard Rustin?
Yeah, still ahead, we're going to take you to a place years in the making where these unsung heroes are remembered for their contributions. Welcome back, everyone. A lot of buildings across the Bay Area have historical significance.
Numerous buildings bear the names of influential African Americans. One of them being the George Edgecombe Courthouse. It's named after the first African-American assistant state attorney in Hillsborough County. Edgecombe was invested as a county judge on August 13th of 1973. He was a pivotal figure in the county, volunteering for Big Brothers Big Sisters. He was also a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity and was on the Urban League Board of Directors. George Edgecombe's life was cut short. He died in 1976 at the age of only 33, but his lasting legacy is evident in the walls of the courthouse.
From Hollywood to the streets of America, there are untold stories of African Americans everywhere you look.
And while many of us know the names Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks, there are many more who make contributions and sacrifices.
Yeah, there's a place you can hear and see those stories, and that's the National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, Tennessee. Kelly Cook takes us there.
You've heard of Martin.
I'll have you arrested.
And you've certainly heard of Rosa Parks, who so famously refused to give up her seat on a Montgomery bus to a white woman in 1955.
And this is what would later become known as the birth of the Civil Rights Movement.
But what if I told you the household name of Rosa Parks could have been replaced with Claudette Colvin or Mary Louise Smith?
Both, like Rosa Parks, decided not to give up their seat to a white person on the bus.
And they did it the same year and in the same city as Rosa Parks. 15-year-old Colvin was arrested in March, Smith in October. These unsung heroes may be lost in many history books, but not here at the National Civil Rights Museum, where everywhere you turn is a hidden hero waiting to be found, like Bayard Rustin.
Well, he does get lost in the shuffle.
Who spoke before more than 250,000 people at the March on Washington in 1963.
He was Martin Luther King Jr.'s right-hand man behind the scenes.
And he had the pleasure of speaking after Dr. King. Talk about a hard act to follow.
He goes on right after arguably one of the most important speeches that's ever given in the history of the United States.
But King's I Have a Dream speech might have never happened had it not been for Rustin.
Bayard Rustin, if you're looking at the March on Washington as a motion picture, he was not only the director, he was also the producer.
The Westchester, Pennsylvania native had his hand in everything from training security to writing slogans to even, yes, the lineup of the speeches that day.
He had to remain behind the scenes because he was openly gay. And in the 50s and 60s, it was extremely taboo.
But nowhere was it more violent than Birmingham, where a bus carrying Freedom Riders was bombed and dogs were sent after children. It's where Dr. King did some of his most important work. Dr. King was even arrested in Birmingham, penning a letter from a Birmingham jail when he was arrested for defying a court order prohibiting marches. But he would have never come to Birmingham if it hadn't been for a man named Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth. Reverend Shuttlesworth was leading the fight for civil rights in the most segregated city in America. His home bombed, a target of the Klan, while leading marches and protests. Shuttlesworth co-founded the SCLC, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, with Dr. King, and encouraged his friend to help him in the fight in the city known as Birmingham.
Had it not been for the courage and insistence of Fred Shuttlesworth to invite Dr. King to Birmingham, it's unsure if segregation would have ended as a result of the Civil Rights Bill of 1964, signed the following summer.
The fight for civil rights had many faces, and they have a home where they can forever be remembered. In Memphis, Tennessee, I'm Kelly Cook.
And still ahead, much more to come, including the sweet sound of music.
Coming up, the story behind the music and the incredible musical icon who's tickled those ivories for decades.
Well, it is not often someone writes a song specifically about you.
Well, Nat King Cole did just that for a woman with Bay Area ties, but that is not even her true claim to fame.
When Nat King Cole writes a song about you, you know you are somebody. And that somebody is 93-year-old Lillette Jenkins Wisner, an internationally known concert pianist who started playing when she was 5 years old.
Our neighbors told my grandmother that if Lillette would get lessons, that she would give her the piano.
I sat with her daughter and granddaughter. They run a music foundation in her name, and they tell me Miss Lillette started playing by mimicking everything she heard.
She just listened to the radio. There was no TV at the time. And she was able to play on the piano everything that she heard.
Over the years, she ended up playing with some of the best. Cab Calloway, Duke Ellington, Ella Fitzgerald, just to name a few.
Not until I really got older did I realize I was in Duke Ellington's house. Cab, because you don't know that when you're 5 and 6, you're just having fun.
It was fun for Miss Lillette, but only part of a life calling.
She always told us, that her number one priority was family.
A couple of years ago, we featured her on Daytime.
I can't really memorize things anymore.
But that trouble is not because of age. She's learning to live with Alzheimer's, and little by little, her memory is fading.
She can still get on that piano and tear it up. It's still a piece of her, you know. It looks like her arms, her legs, you know, that piano has always been a piece. That's right, an extension.
Actually had the chance to meet her, and she is just the sweetest woman. Now, Miss Lillette was actually retired in Sarasota, but after her diagnosis, she went on to move with her other daughter who lives in Orlando, so someone could always be there to watch her.
Just amazing, that raw talent, though, and just still playing
Since
beautifully.
she was 5 years old.
Wow.
Well, the end of February, of course, does not mean an end to recognizing the accomplishments of African Americans in Tampa Bay and around the world, really.
You can find the hidden history of their contributions from Central Avenue in Tampa to the theater in St. Pete.
All a sign of just how big a role African Americans continue to play in shaping our world. Have a good night.